This is TWiT.
So we were talking about the coronavirus. Of course, I think a lot of people right now are really paying close attention to the coronavirus, the current coronavirus. That's an important thing, is that there are, coronavirus is a sort of category of virus. But right now it is affecting businesses, and we have analysts kind of coming out to say, hey, here is something that we need to be paying attention to, and it could be affecting different businesses. Personally, I kind of find that a bit of a bummer that we're concerned about the business state of things.
For sure.
But we have Jason Hiner here from CNET to talk about the impact that the coronavirus might have on Apple, Google, and Tesla in different places. So thank you so much for being with us here today, Jason.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Jason.
Absolutely.
It's been a while. Happy to get you
Yeah,
back.
good to see you too.
So let's talk first and foremost. I mean, there's a reason that this particular virus is kind of standing out. There a lot of times we've had people here at work who have been sick and have had to stay home for a few days, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to rewrite TWiT's business plan because of that fact.
Yeah, right.
What is it about this virus that kind of makes it so much more severe than things past?
Yeah, I mean the thing is it's caused so many fatalities already. It's a very serious kind of infectious disease that is fast spreading. We have seen some things like this before. SARS was one that is probably most noted to have a similar effect. There is, in the U.S., one of the things that has been said is that the risk is low so far, but there have been an outbreak, 5 confirmed cases in the U.S., and obviously in China it's much more serious. It has spread in other parts of Asia. It has spread in Europe as well. So it's one of those things, because of the way global travel works and the way global we live in such a global society. So many people do go back and forth to parts of Asia and other parts of the world. Asia is so intermingled with the U.S. economy as well as with the European Union now that it's tough to really contain something like this. But there are a lot of efforts being done by the World Health Organization, the CDC, and others to do whatever we can to kind of mitigate the effects. And you are seeing some of the big companies, as you mentioned at the start, doing this and taking precautions. Google has closed all of their China offices temporarily, and encouraged people to work from home for a couple weeks. Apple has closed some stores. They have suppliers in the area of China, the Wuhan area where this is happening. And, they've had reduced hours at some other locations. And then Tesla just announced today that they were shutting the doors on their Shanghai production facility, which this is a new facility. They've always, of course, famously made their vehicles in California, but this is sort of they've recently expanded into China. And so it affects them. But, of course, all of the tech companies, all of them have a presence in China to one degree or another, either making products or markets, retail. So it is going to affect things for a while, and clearly it's affecting the markets worldwide as well. People being a little worried about how long this could last and what the impact could be on lots of people. So lots to keep an eye on. There is a way, if you do want to keep an eye on it, though. One of the things, we have a story on this as well on CNET on how to track its spread across the U.S. And Europe. There's an online dashboard that you can use to keep an eye on what's happening.
Yeah, we'll definitely be sure to include that in the show notes for the show so folks can check out that dashboard for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the dashboard's super interactive, very informative. I guess the question that comes to mind right now is, I mean, obviously the coronavirus is a big deal. There's a lot of worry, a lot of concern. So, it makes perfect sense to do everything in their power to control it. Have we seen this type of reaction in previous cases? SARS was a long time ago, but in some of these other kind of air quotes outbreak scenarios, have tech companies been so quick to be like, we're shutting our doors because we don't want to see the impacts? Or is this the result of them not doing that in the past?
Boy, that's a great question. I don't remember ever seeing something on this scale. Yeah. And maybe it is partly because of the fact that we have better information, or we like to tell ourselves we have better information, things like this online dashboard. And, in the past, my sense is that these kinds of things, SARS got pretty bad before there was action to try to stem the spread of it. Yeah. So in that sense, you could really look at this as a much more proactive approach, a more data-based approach to disease prevention. And so perhaps we could see that as a positive step in dealing with these kinds of things. So in the one hand, because we have such a more global society made possible by technology in many cases, that's what makes the spread of this more faster and more dangerous. But at the same time, because we have better information and we have better technology, better communication, we can also, by the same token, or the other side of the coin, is that we can make preventative measures and get preventative measures to other parts of the world and collaborate more quickly on them. So, so that's a dynamic that's worth watching.
Yeah. So it just so happened that Apple's earnings report kind of coincided with more news on this virus, and with, again, it started with some analysts suggesting that Apple would be impacted before Apple itself started talking about it. What specifically did CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, have to say about the coronavirus, sort of what Apple's steps were that they were taking, and if and how it would affect Apple's bottom line?
Yeah, he didn't say too much, but he did say, on their earnings call Tuesday, that, we're closely following the developments of coronavirus. He mentioned that they're donating to groups to help the human impact of this, to try the groups that are working to prevent and contain the outbreak. They're working closely with both Apple employees and partners in the region, he said, especially in the affected areas in China, and that they're, trying to do the things that they can and control the things that they can to have an impact and to, work with the people that they can work with and that they work with regularly in that area. Of course, you did see Americans, I believe this also happened with Australians as well. Those countries have had airlifts of people, their citizens, moving them out of the affected areas in China, and then essentially quarantining them and making sure that they have treatment and that they're not then just on regular commercial flights or, wandering around the population in general. So doing things that we can to, those are low-tech things in one sense, but doing those things that we can to help, prevent the spread of this, but also be, very human and compassionate with the people who may have been affected and may be getting sick or are at risk, or at the highest risk of getting sick.
Absolutely. CNET also published another article about a game that has actually kind of seen a huge sales spike because of this coronavirus. The game is called Plague Inc., and in it, you sort of play a virus in a way. It's a sort of a strategy, real-time strategy game where you create a plague and you can add different symptoms to it. You can add different ways that it can reach new populations. You sort of give it powers. And the point of the game is to completely kill off the entire world's population. But because of the coronavirus, we've seen people really hopping on board to get this game. And something that I found interesting is the folks from Plague Inc. and also some other bodies have kind of said, hey, this is not a scientific model that works to show you how the coronavirus would spread. In fact, we sort of created this as if the plague were like a zombie plague. So it's been fascinating seeing some of the other impacts. Fascinating and also, a little bit worrisome, seeing some of the other impacts. So what have you seen any impact outside of just, hey, Apple is saying that sales could be hurt and Tesla is closing down plants? I mean, are we seeing sort of impacts outside of that?
Yeah, the game is a good example. It's sort of like a little bit of the dark side of technology, right? In one sense. Maybe there have been things like this before. There have been movies that have, in one sense, dramatized or theorized about super bugs, super viruses in the past. And interestingly, it's one of those things of like, life imitating art. These things are happening. So that's a natural part of human experience. Humans with imaginations exploring possibilities is one of the strengths and sometimes some of the dark parts of humanity. In terms of the larger impact on the tech industry, for right now, it is mostly limited to these things, to the market itself, to the companies involved. Like I said, there's a lot of companies. Tesla, Google, Apple are three, but you name any of the big tech companies, and they're all very interrelated. Their businesses are very much connected to China in terms of either the products they make or sell, the markets that they're in. So, it does have a big impact potentially, and if anything, I think one of the things that is good, especially at this time where there's been this contention between the U.S. and China, is it reminds us how intertwined both the U.S. And China are with one another, and sort of our destinies are linked for sure, and not just the U.S. but also Europe, Western Europe, and others as well. So it's a good reminder of the things that we share, are a lot more powerful than the things that are different about us. And so working together to kind of get through something like this, hopefully, as tragic and somewhat dangerous as it is at the moment, can have a little bit of that bigger message as well.